The winds over the Iron Blood Stadium had barely settled when a terrifying aura swept across the battlefield like the descent of a heavenly dragon. From the distant sky, Xianyu Zion came crashing down with overwhelming momentum. His figure cut through the air like a meteor, his arm transforming into a terrifying dragon claw that glowed with brutal force. That claw, legend said, could tear through 10th-tier rare metals as if they were paper. And now it lunged straight for Ling Han's heart. To the spectators, it seemed the battle had already ended. But at that very instant, the world changed. The air turned cold, so cold that even the breath of cultivators froze in their throats. Snow began to drift across the stadium. Tiny shards of ice glittered under the pale sky, dancing like silent blades. Then a deafening roar shattered the stillness. Aang, a dragon's cry. From behind Ling Han, a colossal shape erupted into existence. An ice-white dragon formed entirely from glacial energy. Its body coiled through the air like a mountain of frost, scales gleaming with ancient power. The ice dragon ground blast formation had awakened. The dragon's eyes blazed with divine majesty as it descended upon Xianyu Ziyuan. Before the Sea Clan warrior could react, the dragon's enormous tail smashed into him. Peng! The impact blasted him across the arena like a rag doll. And the dragon did not stop. It surged forward, unleashing a storm of claw strikes and crushing blows that hammered down upon him without mercy. Xianyu Ziyuan was no ordinary cultivator. His combat strength reached 5 stars within the Shattering Void tier, a terrifying level that few could challenge. But the dragon he faced possessed 7 stars of power. Within the Shattering Void tier, even 1 star represented a chasm between heaven and earth. 2 stars? That difference was tyranny. Xianyu Ziyuan's screams echoed through the arena as the icy dragon ravaged him. His body was battered again and again, blood spraying across the stone floor. 10 moves had long since passed. In truth, he had already been defeated many times over. The spectators sat frozen in disbelief. Their mouths hung open. A moment ago, Ling Han had appeared completely finished, barely surviving the storm of attacks. Yet in the blink of an eye, the tide had reversed so violently that the once dominant Sea Clan expert was now the one being crushed. A comeback, a miraculous reversal. It was so unbelievable that many people simply could not accept what they were witnessing. On the viewing platform, Xian Yutong's lips twitched. Only now did he realize the truth. Helian Rong had never intended to abandon Ling Han. That old fox had known all along. He had known that Ling Han possessed this terrifying trump card. That was why Helian Rong had deliberately bound him with words earlier, preventing him from intervening personally. The ice dragon's strength surpassed 5 stars, but had not yet reached 10. If Xian Yutong had attacked earlier, Ling Han might still have died within 10 moves. But now the bet had already concluded. He had been played, completely. Enough. His voice thundered across the stadium. With a casual wave of his hand, Xian Yutong stepped forward and struck the ice dragon with a single fist. The enormous dragon was blasted aside instantly. Before it could recover, he grabbed the battered Xianyu Ziyuan and withdrew from the battlefield. His gaze then turned toward Helian Rong, sharp as a blade. Arrange accommodations for the honored guests. This king must treat Ziyuan's injuries. Of course, everyone knew that treating injuries was only an excuse. The real problem was how to resolve the situation. 2 of the Xianyu clan's important figures had died because of Ling Han. Yet the wager had been made publicly. 10 moves had passed. By the rules of the bet, all grudges should have ended there. If Ling Han had been alone, Xian Yutong could simply ignore the agreement. The North Sea royal clan would hardly fear the complaints of a single human. But Helian Rong was here. And if word spread that the Xianyu royal family had broken their promise, their reputation would suffer greatly. Meanwhile, Ling Han remained seated in the center of the stadium. He did not stand. He did not withdraw the ice dragon formation. Instead, he continued sitting quietly beneath its protection. Inside his body, the martial intent of a shattering void tier expert raged like a destructive storm. And Ling Han was deliberately confronting it. This was extremely dangerous. If his spiritual consciousness faltered even slightly, that terrifying intent could destroy his divine sense completely. At that point, not even the Black Tower could save him. But genius and madness were separated only by a thin line, and Ling Han had already crossed it. Shu Ran had comprehended Saberheart. the small sword emperor, had awakened Sword Heart. Their achievements pressed heavily on Ling Han's mind, fueling his determination. He refused to fall behind. If this opportunity could help him grasp Sword Heart, then he would gamble everything. 1 day passed, 2 days, 10 days, then an entire month. During that time, the shattering void martial intent rampaged through his body like a catastrophic storm. The will of a shattering void expert could persist for centuries. And within just 1 month, it had already devastated 99% of Ling Han's physical body. His heart nearly stopped beating. His limbs no longer responded. Only his consciousness remained his final fortress. He could not even move a finger. His body felt like something that belonged to someone else. If his mind fell as well, he would truly die. Within his sea of consciousness, the tiny spiritual infant formed seals again and again. Mystical powers were continuously derived to repel the invading will. Meanwhile, Ling Han's sword intent grew stronger and stronger. Inside the Black Tower, the Revere life sword trembled softly. Its engraved patterns lit up one by one like awakened stars. Then suddenly, Ling Han's eyes snapped open. He leapt to his feet. Golden light burst from his body as the indestructible Heaven's Scroll finally began circulating once more, expelling the lingering, shattering void intent. So close, he murmured softly. He had brushed against the edge of Sword Heart. Yet there remained a thin, invisible barrier he could not break. Perhaps tomorrow. Perhaps the very next moment. Or perhaps he would never succeed in this lifetime. Such was the nature of enlightenment. Just then, a voice rang out across the arena. "Hurry and withdraw the formation." It was Xian Yutong. "How long do you plan to occupy the Iron Blood Stadium?" Ling Han blinked in surprise. Though the man's tone was scolding, the killing intent from before had vanished. Had Xian Yutong truly kept his promise? It seemed almost impossible. Before he could decide what to do, Helion Rong's voice quietly transmitted to him. "Withdraw it. If Lord Xianyu truly wished to kill you, this formation would not save you." Ling Han chuckled. With a thought, he dispersed the Ice Dragon Ground Blast formation. In truth, if things truly reached a desperate situation, he still possessed the Black Tower. Killing a Shattering Void expert might even be possible. But doing so would expose his greatest secret and invite disaster from far greater powers. "Human," Xian Yutong said slowly, "if you agree to one condition of this king, all grievances can be erased." Ling Han scratched his head. "I won the wager. Shouldn't that already settle everything?" Xian Yutong snorted. "You killed 2 members of my clan. Winning one wager can only cancel the hatred for one." Ling Han nearly choked. Even a Shattering Void expert could be this shameless? Still, he noticed that both Xian Yutong and Helion Rong seemed strangely relaxed. It was likely the 2 old foxes had already reached some agreement during the month he spent in seclusion. After a moment, Ling Han sighed. "Fine. What condition?" Xian Yutong spoke calmly. "Marry a girl of the Xianyu clan and produce an heir. Then the matter will be settled." Ling Han stared at him. The child, Xian Yutong explained, would belong to the Xianyu clan. Ling Han had killed one of their geniuses. Naturally, he should return one. The logic left Ling Han speechless. He slowly turned his gaze toward Helion Rong. "So this was your doing? Was this father-in-law secretly selling him like breeding livestock?" Helion Rong coughed awkwardly, his face reddening slightly. "My tongue loosened after drinking." Apparently, after gaining a grandson of extraordinary talent, he had bragged a little too much while drunk. Xian Yutong had immediately connected the dots. If Ling Han could produce one such descendant, why not another for the Xianyu clan? Thus, the Xi clan had rushed over as soon as they learned Ling Han had awakened. Ling Han shook his head firmly. "I refuse." He had absolutely no interest in becoming some clan's breeding tool. And besides, what if the woman herself didn't agree? Forcing 2 strangers into marriage could only create misery. Xian Yutong sneered. "Are you afraid the girl is ugly? Do not worry. She is one of the pearls of our clan, the only daughter of my 7th brother. Her name is Xianyu Chai. Not only is she beautiful beyond compare, but her bloodline is among the purest of our younger generation." Just as he finished speaking, a sharp voice cut through the air. "I would rather die than marry this human." Everyone turned. In the distance stood a young woman gripping a gleaming treasure sword. Her eyes blazed with fury. "If anyone dares force this marriage," her sword lifted slightly, "either he dies or I do." The winds from the northern sea carried the scent of salt and ancient power as Ling Han stood facing the representatives of the Xianyu royal family. Before him stood a young woman whose beauty seemed carved from moonlight itself. This girl was none other than Xianyu Kai. Her features were breathtaking, every movement graceful as drifting petals. Even when compared to Helian Shui, she was not inferior in the slightest. In fact, her figure possessed a more mature charm, her curves full and striking, quite unlike Helian Shui's slender frame. Yet despite the beauty before him, Ling Han's expression remained calm and unmoved. He folded his hands behind his back and spoke in a steady voice. "My lord, matters forced upon the heart rarely bring harmony. Lady Xianyu has no affection for me, and I have no intention toward her. Why insist on binding two unwilling people together?" Shan Yutong's expression darkened slightly, his authority radiating like a storm cloud. "Marriage," he said coldly, "is not a trivial matter for youngsters to decide for themselves." Shan Yu Kai did not dare argue with Shan Yutong directly. Instead, she fixed Ling Han with a fierce stare, her beautiful eyes blazing with defiance. "If you dare agree to this arrangement," she warned sharply, "I will never let you live in peace." With that declaration, she leapt away like a startled crane, her figure vanishing in a flash of elegant movement. Only the lingering vision of her graceful silhouette remained. Ling Han chuckled softly. "So this lord may decide Lady Xianyu's marriage, yet when it concerns my own? Heh, forgive me, but I must refuse." The words made Shan Yutong's face grow colder. "Ling Han," he said slowly, his gaze sharp as a blade, "have you truly considered the consequences of this decision? If you accept this marriage, you gain a wife of unparalleled beauty. More than that, you gain the support of the Xianyu royal family." His voice lowered, carrying the weight of power. "This king knows you have established your own royal court. The 5 great sects of the central state undoubtedly see you as a thorn in their side. But if our clan supports you, you will no longer need to fear them. And the price you pay is almost nothing." He stared at Ling Han. "A deal with such gains and no losses, and you intend to refuse?" Ling Han simply sighed. "Then I fear your lordship will be disappointed." "I still refuse." For a full 10 breaths, Xian Yutong said nothing. His gaze remained fixed on Ling Han, measuring him carefully. Then suddenly, he burst into loud laughter. "Good, good, good." Though disappointment flickered in his eyes, there was also a hint of admiration. "In these times," he said, "there are not many who can still uphold their principles." Ling Han smiled faintly. "So what will your lordship do now?" Shan Yutong waved his sleeve lightly. "Simple. Allow you and Kair to spend more time together. Young people grow closer once they understand one another." Ling Han blinked. So he still had not given up. But Ling Han merely remained silent. He was not a man easily swayed by such schemes. Seeing his calm attitude, Shan Yutong changed the subject. "Of course, forming an alliance and settling grievances is not impossible. I can change the condition." He looked at Ling Han meaningfully. "As long as you obtain something for this king." Ling Han immediately sensed that the request would not be simple. "What thing?" Xian Yutong slowly said, "In 10 days' time, the ghostly dragon cave will open." The moment those words were spoken, Helian Rong's eyes widened. The teeth of a true dragon. Xian Yutong was not surprised that Helian Rong had guessed his intention. The ghostly dragon cave was no secret in the northern seas. "That is correct," he said calmly. "The tooth of a true dragon. If you retrieve it for this king, not only will all past grievances be erased, but you will also receive a great reward." However, Helian Rong's expression grew serious. "The true dragon's tooth lies in the 4th layer of the ghostly dragon cave," he said grimly. "Almost everyone who enters that place never returns alive, and even the rare survivors often die soon after escaping." Shan Yutong chuckled lightly. "There is clearly an easy path before him. Since this brat refuses it, then naturally, he must take the difficult one." He looked back at Ling Han. "I will say it once more. If you marry Kair, the grievances disappear immediately, and the alliance is settled on the spot." He paused. "You may take your time and think it over." With that, Xian Yutong flicked his sleeve and left. He was not worried about Ling Han running away. If Ling Han wished to flee, he would not have come in the first place. The problem of the alliance still gripped Ling Han like a hand around his throat. Once Xian Yutong had gone, Ling Han turned to Helian Rong. Father-in-law, he asked curiously, what exactly is this ghostly dragon cave? Helianrong's expression immediately grew solemn, almost reverent. Long ago, he said slowly, a powerful dragon clan expert of the northern seas died there. His identity has been lost to history. But after his death, his body transformed into what is now known as the ghostly dragon cave. Ling Han raised an eyebrow. That powerful? Helianrong nodded. This being was unimaginably strong. His blood, flesh, and bones all evolved into extraordinary spiritual medicines. But the cave is also filled with terrifying creatures. It is a place overflowing with treasure and death. He paused before continuing. According to legend, that dragon powerhouse possessed 20 stars of battle power at the Shattering Void tier. Ling Han's eyes widened slightly. That was the absolute peak of human strength. Even if divine beings descended into this realm, Helianrong said solemnly, they would not have been able to defeat him. That is why, after his death, strange phenomena occurred. His body transformed into a mysterious realm that has endured for hundreds of millions of years. Even Helianrong, who possessed 10 stars of Shattering Void battle power himself, felt small compared to that ancient existence. He continued with a sigh. That powerhouse was only one step away from becoming a true dragon. Unfortunately, he failed to take that final step, so he could only be called an alternative dragon. There was deep regret in Helianrong's voice. In the past, I did not understand why someone so powerful never ascended to godhood, but now I know. He was too powerful. Even the divine beings who descended could not kill him. Yet he also did not dare to shatter the void and ascend, and so he remained in the lower realm until he died of old age. Tragic. Helianrong's eyes hardened slightly. It only strengthened his resolve. He would tear open the heavens one day. Otherwise, there were only two endings waiting for cultivators in this world, being refined into a pill or dying of old age. There was no third path. Ling Han then asked, so what is special about this true dragon tooth? Helianrong replied, when the alternative dragon died, his entire body became the ghostly dragon cave. Only one tooth remained perfect preserve. That tooth contains the boundless power of a dragon. It is an absolute treasure for any descendant of the true dragon bloodline. Even Helianrong could not hide his excitement. Ling Han's heart stirred immediately. His son possessed true dragon blood. If the child could refine that dragon tooth, just how high could the boy soar in the future? This opportunity, he would not let it slip away. Ling Han then questioned Helianrong further. Seeking every detail about the ghostly dragon cave, Helianrong explained everything he knew. The cave lay in the western region of the Northern Sea. Normally, it could not be entered because even in death, the alternative dragon's overwhelming aura still suppressed the area. That ancient dragon had once reached the very limit of power allowed in this world. Even after death, its presence could still crush countless Shattering Void elites. However, once every 500 years, the cave would open for a brief period, usually around half a month. Inside were 4 layers. Each layer contained rare spiritual medicines formed from the dragon's essence, treasures with astonishing medicinal power. But those treasures were guarded by terrifying creatures born from the dragon's flesh and blood. These monsters were strong, yet they could never leave the cave, bound forever within the dragon's corpse. Anyone seeking treasure inside would have to face these creatures, which made the cave extremely dangerous. Aside from the true dragon tooth, another treasure existed there: dragon's bloodgrass. This herb was second only to the dragon tooth in value. It could temper the body and nurture a dragon-like physique. Ling Han nodded slowly. Very good. If his son could obtain both the dragon tooth and dragon's bloodgrass, the child's cultivation foundation would be unimaginably solid. After making his decision, Ling Han informed Helian Xunshui. Her brows immediately knit together in worry. The first 3 layers of the ghostly dragon cave are manageable, she said softly. Though dangerous, survival is still possible. But the 4th layer, her voice grew heavy. That place is nearly certain death. Almost everyone who enters never returns, and those who do escape rarely live long afterward. Ling Han nodded calmly. I will judge the situation carefully. I won't act recklessly. Yet deep within his eyes, a determined light had already begun to burn for the future of his son. Even the lair of an ancient dragon would not stop him.